Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning this episode of Nick Egan Times. On this episode, we have an incredible guest. We have the legendary Grammy Award-winning and best-selling author, John Novello. John is a Grammy Award-winning jazz pianist, composer, and best-selling author whose latest number one Amazon best-selling book, The Invisible Architect: How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within, delves into the intriguing fusion of memoir and channeled transformational self-help principles. John, notably recognized as a Grammy Award-winning jazz pianist and composer, John has achieved remarkable success in the world of music with multiple top 10 hits on the Billboard Jazz Charts, including two number one hits, B3 Soul and Good to Go. Beyond John's musical prowess, John has also ventured into the realm of literature, becoming a best-selling self-help author and music educator. This innovative self-help program offers a unique perspective on achieving one's perfect life by harnessing the power we all have within. Welcome to the talented John, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be your guest. I'm looking forward to this.
Amazing. All right, let's jump straight into it. Tell me, take us back. Tell me about growing up and how life was for you growing up.
Well, like I say in the beginning part of my book, the first couple chapters are more autobiographical. I grew up in a small town called Erie, Pennsylvania. We used to call it the mistake by the lake because nothing ever happens there. So, but at 3 years old, I saw a keyboard player on TV and I pointed to it, and my mom and dad figured, oh, he must want to play. And it was the accordion, not the organ or the piano that I play now, but I saw a keyboard. And that was the first time I heard this inner voice, which later on I became friends with. And I started taking lessons, and one thing led to another, and got in a band. And then the Invisible Architect, which is my name for the creator, um, orchestrated a famous producer that was driving from New York to Cleveland, where he lived, and a big snowstorm happened. So he pulled off the freeway and went to the hotel, and that I'd happened to be playing, which is very coincidental because it ain't. And went into the bar to have a drink, and my band was playing, and he was pretty floored. And he walked up to me after I was done playing. He said, "Are you the music director?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you guys signed to a record deal?" And I was only 18. I didn't even know what a record deal was.
Yeah.
And I said, "No." And he goes, "You are now." And that's how easy and quick it was for me to get involved in the record industry. But to make a long story short, it was short-lived. We had a number three record. I don't remember what number, somewhere in the top five. And then the singer, those were the days of the draft, which gives away my age, got drafted. And of course, without the lead singer, there's no deal. And next thing I know, the record company dropped me, and I was devastated. But God works in mysterious ways. I've been blessed all my life, and I ended up deciding. I went to college and majored in mathematics and minored in music. And then after college, I moved to Boston because I wanted to study music. But all the while I was in college, I kept that band going and learned a lot of music. And then eventually moved out to California, literally to make it big, because I heard that's where the action was. And literally almost the day I got out there, somebody heard me play in a music store, and I ended up joining one of the biggest disco bands in the world, R&B disco bands, called The Taste of Honey. So there's another orchestrated thing, if you think about it. And then that led to going to Donna Summer and Manhattan Transfer and all these different bands. So I had this music career going, but I wasn't thrilled with it because it was not exactly the music I wanted to play, which was jazz. And I eventually started my own band of music and kept going forward. So that's how my career started.
Incredible. I love your jazz music too. Tell me about the experience of when your song started to get, I guess, traction on the charts. How did that make you
You
feel?
you mean the one that my band now with the new record that
Yeah,
came out?
B3 Soul,
Yeah.
Good to Go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, B3 Soul was released in 2008 or nine, I think. And the reason why I called it B3 Soul is because I was playing an organ called the Hammond B3, and it was a very famous model. And I got the idea. And again, I owe all this to the creator would inspire me. I had this voice since I was 3 years old, and it gave me information. And I said, why don't you do a record featuring this famous organ and write music, and let's call it B3 Soul. Soul is a very, you know, emotional word in music, which means that you're very expressive. And I've always been uh, noted to have a lot of feeling when I play. So there's your soul. B3 was the instrument. So I released the record, and to my surprise, the B3 soul track was the one that everybody liked, and it went up the charts. And that was my first experience with anything on the charts. So as all the record, as excuse me, as all the radio stations started to pick it up and play it, and my manager was going, "Hey, you won't believe what's happening," blah 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 blah, and one thing led to another. Next thing you know, it's going up the charts. I think I had another hit off that record, uh, and that inspired the contemporary jazz career. And I ended up doing two more records after that and had hits with all of those too.
That's fantastic. It's incredible. All right, tell me about your number one Amazon book, and tell me what that reflects and what was the inspiration behind it.
Well, after I had this very successful career playing with other famous people, and then the next record was called Crush, and I had a number 3 hit on the Billboard charts with that tune, and then another one after that was Good to Go. And Good to Go is an interesting story. I was in my recording studio in Los Angeles. I live in Nashville now. My wife was sleeping, and I was playing around on the piano, and I always do what's I call go into the zone. The zone means my connection where I channel not only information, but even music. That's what it feels like. And when I feel that connection, good things happen. And I was feeling the connection and playing the piano. The melody of Good to Go started to happen. I was playing it, and I went, "Oh my God, this is unique. I think this could be a hit record." So I started writing and carving it and doing everything. And about 2.5 hours later, I had pretty much the basic format of the song, and I recorded it a little bit in my studio, played the keyboards and the bass and everything. I ran in the house to wake up my wife. I said, "I think we just got a hit record. You got to come out and hear it." And I was so excited, but she wouldn't wake up. She was so tired. So I figured I'd talk to her in the morning. So I went back out, and I was up all night, finished a lot of it. And in the morning, I sent it to my manager, who's also a hit producer. He was co-producing the record with me. And I said, uh, hey, in fact, I always use the Australian verbiage, might. He always says, might, you know. I said, might, I think we got another hit record on her. And I sent it to him, and he agreed. And then we took a few days and finished it. And that was the last tune on the album. So about 6 weeks later, 2 months later, we released it. And bang, I mean, right up the Billboard charts. Bang, bang, bang. Next thing you know, I'm driving in the car on the freeway in LA. He calls me up. He goes, "Mike, how's it feel to have another number 1 record?" And I went, "Oh my God." It's like, thank you. And at that point, I still didn't have the name of the Invisible Architect. I have been communicating with it and experiencing information and decisions and manifestations from the creator, the Invisible Architect, which is a story on how the name came about unto itself. And then a little bit later on, I woke up one day and the architect said, "You need to write a book." And I kind of went, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, I've written many books in the music educational area. And but this was different. This is like a book in the area of manifestation and metaphysics and spiritual growth. And even though I was a student of that my whole life, I never considered myself an expert guru in the area. But when I got the command, it was almost like, "You need to do this." And I'm like going, "Why?" And the voice was saying, "Because you need to pay it forward. I've been interacting with you for many, many years, and you need to share it now." So it's like, shut up and do it. So that's how the Invisible Architect came about. I started writing it when I didn't even have a name, but I was especially blessed with the song going up the chart so quick.
That's terrific. And how long did the book take you to write?
How did the book, what?
How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, the book took me about a year and a half. That included rewrites and editing. It took me about 6, 7 months, actually. It was pretty much almost dictated, almost like automatic writing, like a channel thing. Once I got the outline of, because I knew it had to do with uh, manifesting uh, a reality. A lot of people call that nowadays in the new age world, the law of attraction. I'm not so keen on that name. I like the law of correspondence better, which is whatever your desire is here, your inner world, that is what creates your outer world. So inner creates outer. And that's what the book is about. And I just get into all the fundamentals. But I wrote it pretty quick, and halfway through, I still didn't have a name. I was thinking I was going to call it something like How to Create a Better Life, by John Novello. Yeah, very mundane title. I didn't like it. And then one day I was on the internet, and on the side, they always have advertisements. There was an advertisement for something called invisible architecture. This guy was an architect, and he's talking about how great architecture is invisible and it blends in. But as I'm reading this thing, I got drawn to reading about it. And as I'm reading about invisible architecture, which had nothing to do with music, the invisible architecture, the creator, the energy that I've been communicating with for 50 years of my life, kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "That's my name." And I went, "What, invisible architecture? That doesn't make sense." "No, invisible architect." And I went, "Oh, that's pretty incredible." Yes, God, the creator, is invisible and the creator of all. In physics, I tend to call this, instead of the invisible architect, the quantum intelligent energy field, because I pretty much believe in research that there is an energy that permeates everything. Physicists talk about it as well, quantum energy, quantum spirituality, and that energy created us and permeates everything. And so once I got the name, it was easy for me to finish the rest of it, put the outline together. And then I was looking around for an editor because I wanted to do a good job. And I found this New York Times bestseller editor with no references. It was like the architect just guided me to this guy. And I called him up, and he said something about a waiting list and ever. And I said, "I don't like to agree with things. My whole book's about manifestation." And so all I did was call him up and explain to him, blah, blah, blah. And amazed, he emailed me back and says, "The subject sounds really interesting." So he solicited it because he doesn't take unsolicited scripts. And I sent him the manuscripts, and he said, "I love this. I'm excited. I'm reading it now and I'm learning." So that's how I got this great editor. And it took him about 2 months to edit it. And then did a little research on how to release books on Amazon and put it out there. And within a few days, it was an Amazon #1 bestseller in the area of metaphysics. So all my life, I've been blessed with things. And to me, that's why I ended up paying it forward, because I don't look at it as an accident, not just being blessed for no reason. I've had this spiritual guidance, and that's why I wrote the book, to pay it forward. So what I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring now based on the fundamentals of my book. And what I do when I work with people one-on-one, they tell me about their life and what situations they're trying to create and manifest or having trouble. And then I go through the fundamentals of my book to show them how to interact with this invisible architect and how to have it help design your perfect life.
That's extraordinary. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
it's
never, if a psychic would have looked into a crystal ball and said, "Yeah, John Novello, musician, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, you're going to write a metaphysical book, blah, blah." And I'd say, "No, no, no, you're a fraud. I got nothing to do with that stuff. I study that stuff, but and I would have never believed it." You know what I mean? And now here I am doing one-on-one mentoring with people all over the world. Just did one yesterday in Nigeria and another one in uh, Oslo in Sweden, and I like it. In fact, I'm thinking now, because I'm getting in my twilight years, that music, I've accomplished enough in music where it to me is my hobby now. I love playing for people and inspiring people, and I'm writing a new record right now. But music to me is more of a hobby because music's great. I love it, but it just entertains and inspires people, which is good, by the way. But after you inspire and entertain them, they have to go back to their life. And if most people have various situations in their life they want to make better, with this mentoring that I'm doing, I can actually help them change their life, not just inspire them. So I think it's even a better thing for my twilight years.
Yeah, that's great. It's very inspirational too what you're doing with the one-on-one and the mentoring. All right, what motivates you daily?
Motivates me in any area or in general.
General.
You know, I'd literally, I have to give credit to the invisible architect for that because I think it's above my pay grade to know that answer. I mean, I'm just blessed that I have a lot of free flowing creative ideas that are constantly coming into my thought universe without any effort. In fact, there's way too many. I have to shut it down sometimes. I've got ideas for 4 more books floating around in my head, and I write down sketches. And the same thing with music. I've never had what some people call writer's block or anything like that. And I don't want to jinx it now, but motivation to me is doing something you have passion for. And so at an early age, I've always had the integrity to stay away from things that I don't believe in or I don't like. And it doesn't matter to me if I'm going to go broke. I can't seem to do anything that I don't have passion for. And to me, that's the secret of life, which is you either have to find, if you don't already know, and there's ways to do that that I show people how to do, find these areas where you have passion, because there's no way we are born without abilities and without passion for things. But what happens is in this lower frequency, dense physical universe, we're distracted by survival and problems and making money. And it's like a radio. If your frequency is not tuned to a particular channel that you want to hear, you're not going to hear it clear, right? You've got noise in your head and distractions, and maybe your parents wanted you to do this, and the college dean is telling you to do this, and it's hard to make decisions. So, to me, it's not hard to be motivated if you're doing something you absolutely love. It's like when you were a little kid and right before Christmas, if you went to bed and you were excited about seeing Santa Claus, you couldn't even sleep, couldn't wait to get up. There was no motivational problem. And another analogy is uh, you have to have a burning desire to do something. Well, how can you have a burning desire if you're doing something you don't like, right? Analogy would be if you were underwater 100 feet or 50 feet scuba diving, and you were surrounded by sharks, and you were trying to wait for them to clear, and all of a sudden something happened to your oxygen supply. Your burning desire at that point would be what? Got to get to the surface, got to get oxygen. Would you care about the sharks at that point? No, you couldn't. You have a burning desire to get to the surface, so it doesn't matter. You just go, you go for it. So when you've picked something you have passion for, I don't think you need motivation. But if you're doing something you don't like, I think people struggle with motivation.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Well, it's an interesting story. You know yeah, he's dead now, but he's one of the greatest jazz pianists that ever lived. Oscar Peterson. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Amazing guy. And the two most influential pianists in my early days, when I was 18, 19, were Oscar Peterson and Chick Corea. Both of them have passed. And I've met both of them and become friends. But the way I met Oscar is I heard and got this advice. is I heard that he was playing in Rochester, New York, which is 160 miles away from Erie, Pennsylvania. So me and my friend said, hey, let's drive up. We were 18. We drove up to a jazz club in Rochester. We got there a little late, so we missed the first set, and there was no room, so standing room only. And Oscar Peterson comes out, and those were the days where you could still smoke in clubs, you know. So he comes out, and he's leaning against the wall, and he's smoking a cigarette, getting ready to go on. And I'm seeing him there, and I'm like a groupie at this point. Oh my God, this is Oscar Peterson. I got to meet him, and my friend's going, "Oh, you can't bother him. He's a star." And I go, I don't care. I'm going to be polite. There's no way I'm going to blow this opportunity. At that time, I was already in communication with the invisible architect, but didn't have the name. And I used to just call it my inner voice and my intuition, right? So my intuition, my inner voice said, no, go do it. So at the right moment, I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Peterson, is it all right if I shake your hand and tell you that I'm an inspiring jazz pianist and your music is just incredible. I just had to tell you that I hope I'm not bothering you. And he was the nicest guy. He goes, absolutely not. And he reaches out his hand. Now, if you see my hand, it's not the biggest hand in the world. Well, his hand was almost twice as big as my hand. He's a big guy. So I put my little white hand into his big black hand, and it disappeared into the cave. And I went, oh my God. And he saw that and he goes, what? What's wrong? I said, there's nothing wrong. I said, now I know why you can do all that stride stuff. And I became a victim at that moment. And I said, this was the answer to your question. I said, oh man, I don't have a snowball, chance in hell. I wasn't blessed with the right chops to do what you do. I'm really bummed. And he looks at me kind of like reprimands. And here's the lesson. He looks at me, he goes, you got to quit that. He said, you know Chopin? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, Chopin had one of the smallest hands, and he wrote the most incredible etude, classical etudes that hardly anybody can play. And he had these small hands. He said, God gave you these small hands, so you need to figure out how to use them, because there's things that you can do with your small hands that I can't do with my big clumsy hands. So I found out what abilities my big hands can do, and you need to and that was the most amazing piece of advice, because that led me to play the organ, which is smaller keys, and then I became an expert at playing the Hammond organ. I still play piano, but I don't have those big chops like some of those guys do.
That's great advice. Thank
It
you.
seems like a little lesson, but for me, it was a big catalyst for my whole career.
Yeah, definitely. That's great advice.
I mean, I've got a lot of those. I've got lessons from Chick Corea. Chick Corea once told me, he goes, when you're really playing and you're in the zone, you don't think, you just play. And Davis had a famous expression too, there are no mistakes. So when you play, you cannot be thinking that you're going to fail or thinking that you could make a mistake. You just have to go for it. And that whole concept of being in the zone and going for it was an amazing lesson. And I found out later what that did is that allowed the invisible architect to express itself through me. And that's one of the tenets, fundamentals of my book is in order to hook up with this energy source and have it help you design your perfect life, you have to invite it into your life. It's the power. You are not the power. You are the distributor of the power. Let the power design your life, and everything becomes effortless. So that's one of the secrets that I learned.
Thank you for sharing. John, thank you for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. It's incredible everything you've done, your book. Yeah, it's truly remarkable. And thank you again for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate it. Can I tell people how to reach me?
Go for it.
Yeah, my main website, if they want to communicate with me about anything, ask me questions, is John Novello Author, all one word, johnnovelloauthor.com. And the mentor site's very similar, go.johnnovelloauthor.com/register. And maybe when you release this, you could put it somewhere. I think you probably have got my profile that I sent to you. So all the information is in there.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks, John. Have a great day.
Thanks. Fantastic being on your show. Let me know when it comes out, okay?
I will.